On behalf of the National Entrepreneur Center and Orange County Government, welcome to Main Street Profiles, a program where you can discover the secrets of turning a good idea into a successful business. Our guests are entrepreneurs and community leaders here to share their experience and their knowledge, all to help make your business dreams come true. So I'm your host, Jerry Ross, and thanks for joining us today. On today's show, we'll hear from Dr. Mimi Hall and how she has grown a successful company here in Central Florida called Hall & Associates. Thanks for joining us today. Dr. Mimi, thank you for making time to be here today. It's always a pleasure to have you.
I'm delighted to be here, Jerry. Thank you.
Well, tell me about Hall & Associates and what it is and what it does.
What we do is we deal with the people part of the business. I always say that a lot of times people will say to us, oh, you do the soft skills. And I go, absolutely. That's exactly what we train on. And it's the soft skills that are the WD-40 that make the hard skills work. So if you don't have the people skills / soft skills, the chances of your business being successful is that much poorer.
Well, that's a great explanation. The WD-40, I love that explanation because business, both internally and externally, are about relationships. And sometimes that's the hard part of making a business work.
And that's really true, Jerry. A lot of times what happens is we hire people based on their resume. And I call it an advertisement. We know what they can do. You know, and it's kind of like a copier. You know if they can make copies, you can know if it staples, if it collates. But then when they get on the job, what you need is an operating manual because people are different. They may have the same skills, but they have very different ways of implementing them.
And that's what they say about entrepreneurs too, is that if you've met one entrepreneur, you've met one entrepreneur.
Yes, yes.
And so everyone's different, and then when you put them all together in the business setting, making that work smoothly is quite a challenge. So how do you do that?
We do a lot of different things. One is we go in and we do a needs assessment and we try to find out what's going and what's working well and how can we build on those strengths. And then we look at what are the opportunities for improvement and how can the people work better together. And so we'll do a needs assessment, and as a result of that we may do a personality profile, we may do some interviews individually. A lot depends on what we see. I always try to follow the medical model. You wouldn't want to go to a physician who says, hey, I've got a sale on penicillin.
Right.
What we do is we find out what are the needs, and then we diagnose and prescribe based on that.
And so does that involve role playing? Does that involve meetings with people to get some of the issues out? Once you understand what the problem is, how do you deal with it?
One of the things we do is we build the trust during the needs assessment, and people really appreciate the time that they've spent telling us about the organization. You know, I always say the good, the bad, and maybe even some of the ugly. And then we report it back because people want to know that they were listened to. And when they hear their voices coming back and they hear that we're doing something that's really going to make a difference, they are so eager to participate. And so we'll do training, we'll do coaching, we'll do some assessments. And again, based on the need, then we get the people to really work better together.
I've spoken with you before about dealing with some of the difficult people in an organization. And you had some great examples of caricatures of those kinds of difficult people.
Right.
Can you share those with me today?
Sure, sure. We've got, you know, I love Mr. Cranky Pants, and you know, there's some people that are just, they're irritable, and they sort of relish the fact that they can be difficult. And one of the things we have to figure out is how do you deal with this person? And the first thing is accepting it. You know, I always say that leadership and parenting are similar skills. It's just the size of the kids that are different. That's
very true. That's very true. When you learn, once you've been a parent, you can apply that.
And it's no fun to have a tantrum unless you've got an audience. And so if you're able to get people to buy into it, you're going to be even more cranky. Where what we say is listen to them. Say, tell me more. You know, I always say as emotion goes up, rationality goes down. And so if you can reduce the emotion by actually listening, the chances of their coming down off that ledge, as I often refer to it, is increased dramatically.
So how did Hall & Associates get started?
Gosh, I really am a fully licensed psychologist. And then even going through school, I have a doctoral minor in management and really looked at a way, how can I blend the two? And so what happened was I was doing an internship and I was asked to teach psychology at an organization. And I came back and I said, they don't want psychology. They want more motivation, communication, team building, leadership. And the person who was my supervisor said, okay, you're on an internship, you create it. And so I did. And as a result, we got more and more requests for those types of experiences.
What a great opportunity in an internship
Yes.
role. So what was the biggest challenge in getting started?
You know, it was interesting because a lot of times people don't know exactly what I do. And in fact, I even think about my mother. I would tell her and explain everything. She says, Mimi, just give me 3 words that says what you do. And I said, helping people work better together. And I said, it's 5. She said, I can do 5. I said, okay.
She can make it those 5.
Yes.
But I had a similar experience with you to say, how can you help? And we actually worked together in our organization. And I heard you speak it recently. That how did you take that and monetize it then? A great idea that works. How did you make that into a business?
You know, Jerry, I was blessed with referrals. And that's one of the things that I am so grateful for. I said, if you like what we do, please tell others. And you know the old expression, if you don't, tell me. Well, nobody told me, so I felt pretty good. And then I felt really good when the referrals started coming in. And I am very much referral based, and that's been the strength. And so one person tells another, and they see the value, and they look at, again, the credentials, and they see what we really can do. It's the best advertising ever.
Word of mouth is the best advertising because it's a warm lead.
It is.
And it's been qualified for you when someone refers it to you.
Exactly.
Tell me what your biggest challenge is as a business owner.
You know, I think part of the biggest challenge is differentiating ourselves from some of the other people. Right now, coaching is a very in thing. And it scares me because people will take a 6-month online coaching course and they may have sold shoes yesterday and now they're a coach. And what I find is that we have to compete with that and try to dispel maybe some bad experiences that people have had before when they've dealt with people who did not have the credentials, didn't have the experience. So that's probably the hardest thing. You know, it's the old expression, burned once, twice shy.
That's correct. Yeah. That's correct. So in running a business, what keeps you up at night?
Oh, I think trying to figure out how to get it all in and how to do it all. I love the speaking. I love speaking at conventions. I love the coaching. I love the true organizational development. And we do it all, and no 2 days are alike. And then there are sometimes I go, oh my gosh, what am I doing tomorrow and how am I going to make it work? So that's probably the hardest part of it.
Well, and the pressures of not only helping the businesses, but also helping your own.
Yes.
And how do I make payroll on Friday sometimes becomes a primary concern when you're dealing with a lot of emotions and things. How do you separate yourself from that?
You know, I care a lot, and I think that's important. But you don't care so much where you take on someone else's burdens. And that's probably the best thing that we can do. I'm very clear, and I say, I don't deal with the financial aspects of the business. I truly just deal with the people part of it. And I always say, if you take care of your people will take care of your organization. And so that's how I just sort of draw the line and say, this is what we really do, and here's what we don't do.
Well, I've already learned many lessons from you just sitting here in these few minutes, but I see we're coming up on a break, so don't go anywhere. We're going to come back and talk about your background and your history. When we return, we'll hear a little bit about Dr. Mimi's background and upbringing, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back with more from Dr. Mimi Hall on Main Street Profiles. Welcome back. You're watching Main Street Profiles, where you can discover the secrets of turning a good idea into a successful business. I'm your host, Jerry Ross, and we've been talking with Dr. Mimi Hall and learning about all the ways she helps corporations. So now it's time to hear a little bit about her personal journey to success. So now we're going to change gears, and we've talked about the business, but now we'd like to talk about you. So that's the tricky part, right?
Right.
So where do you come from?
Originally, I'm from upstate New York. I was born in Binghamton, high school in Rochester, New York, and then graduated undergrad from Syracuse University.
So you spent most of your time up there in the snow. And what did you like about school? I
really loved being in school. I love learning. I love meeting new people. I enjoyed Syracuse tremendously, got stranded in a snowstorm and jokingly said, if I get out of this, we're moving to Florida, and ended up doing my graduate work at University of Florida and love being here.
So you were serious.
I was very serious.
Well, I haven't missed scraping a windshield one time since I've come from Ohio.
Yeah.
What did you do in school? Did you play sports? Were you in clubs?
I was in a lot of clubs. I was very, very active. It's class officer, joined a lot of organizations, did a lot of community work. I was not in sports. I was a great, I would say I was a great cheerleader, but not much of a participant on that area, but loved being involved in a lot of different things. In fact, actually got the most active freshman, sophomore, and junior on campus.
So you weren't shy,
No.
is what I'm hearing.
No, not at that point in my life.
That's right. Well, what was your first job?
Oh, Jerry, my first job was stamping the return address on envelopes for a government agency.
No, wait a minute. I need to get this
Literally.
straight. With a hand stamp.
With a hand stamp. That was my job for the summer, and that's what I was meant to do. And I was being paid 3 times minimum wage at the time.
That's a pretty good rate.
It was a great thing. I had to take a test for this job.
I've got to ask you, what kind of tests do they have for hand stamping envelopes?
You know, they had me do math and English, and I did that. I was a junior in high school, and got the job. As I said, got paid 3 times minimum wage, and by the end of the first day, hated it.
It wasn't a good skill match for you, right?
Oh my gosh, no, I did. They put me in the closet, and periodically I would run out of the closet and ask my supervisor, do you like my envelopes? And she'd say, yes, go back and stamp. And then I would get bored and do things like fan them out and stamp them. And when we both realized this wasn't the job for me, was on the 3rd day, I had the envelopes on the floor, and I was holding the stamp and dropping them to try to get it in the right place.
Well, what was your accuracy rate? Did it ever land where it was supposed to?
No, not at all. It was terrible.
So, but what did you learn from that?
I learned 2 things, Jerry. I learned that money isn't everything. You got to love what you do. And second, I knew that I did not like repetitive work, and that I had to do things that really were different on a daily basis and use my brain. And
so, did you have someone growing up that was a mentor or that helped prepare you for what you do today?
I did. My dad. My dad was amazing. He's my hero. And he was, number one, I'm an only child. So I always say I was my father's oldest son and my mother's only daughter. So becoming an entrepreneur, I think, was going to happen as a result of that. He very much said that to take in as many experiences as possible, take as many classes as you can, just broaden your breadth of abilities, and as a result, never be unemployed. And he was head of Department of Labor, so he wanted me never to be unemployed.
That would be a bad thing for
Yes.
a dad at the Department of Labor to
Right.
have his daughter unemployed.
Exactly.
So coming to Florida for education, what brought you to Orlando?
My husband was graduated from law school at the University of Florida, and his first job here was clerking for Chief Judge Young. And that brought us to the Orlando area. And we've never left. We love it here.
And so when you first came, were you thinking of starting your own business or were you working somewhere else?
You know, it was very interesting. I was the counselor to the vocational areas at Santa Fe Community College, teaching these types of classes, which were very new and innovative at the time, and was hired on a phone call to Valencia College. And got there, and all the positions were cut. So all of a sudden, I was scrounging around looking for work. And I ended up teaching emotionally disturbed for 1 year, and then was pregnant with our first child by design, and decided to give up teaching many for 2. And then got a call from someone who had been in my classes that I had taught actually in Jacksonville and in Gainesville, and invited me to come to their business and to do the training here. And that's how I got started. So they found me.
They found you and attracted you into, once again, like school, coming into a business and building your program.
Exactly, exactly.
What was the most challenging client that you've had to deal with?
Oh gosh, you know, Jerry, if I had to say, there's oftentimes an inverse relationship between the amount people pay you and how easy they are to work with. And what I mean by that is it seems like the people who really pay you good money are very easy to work with. The people for whom your heart says, okay, I'm going to help you and we won't charge a whole lot, don't appreciate it. And so I think that's been probably the greatest challenge, because my heart wants to help them, but they have to want it to happen.
And I think you're right that when they are paying you the premium rate, they respect your skill and your service, and they get out of the way and let you do what you need to do.
Exactly.
And so does that happen when people have a personal relationship, or does that happen because many of the small businesses just don't have a budget
You know,
to do
I think
that?
a lot of times people assume it's going to be a lot more expensive than it really is. And when you think about the people part of your business, it's oftentimes the most expensive part of your business. And so what I often say is look at it as an investment. And if you can get more out of your people and they enjoy staying with you and you enjoy having them stay with you, what a bonus. And so that's how we justify it.
And that lowers your cost if you don't have
Yes.
turnover of
Yes.
people who are unhappy. I've heard it said that people don't leave companies, they leave bad bosses.
They do.
And so if you see that happening, it might be time to call Hall & Associates, right?
It is. It is.
So what do you do for fun?
Oh gosh, we do a lot of travel. I enjoy traveling a lot.
You were traveling recently.
I was. We went to both Thailand, came back for 10 days, and then went to Germany. And so we enjoyed seeing the sights. Thailand was a very warm country, and of course, Germany in December was a very cold country.
Exactly, especially around Christmas time.
It was, but we bundled up. I put a picture on Facebook, and someone said, "You look like wimpy Southerners," and I said, "It's because we are."
They say the blood thins out, but
Yes.
it's really just cold.
It was really cold, but we enjoyed it.
And so, do you like movies, books?
I do. I read a lot. I'm in a book club. Enjoy doing that. I do like happy endings. That's one of my criterion.
So do you start reading from the back of the book, or do you just read the cover to ensure?
No, I read them, and usually I read books that have been recommended to me or I've read reviews of them. I love nonfiction, so oftentimes I'll know what the ending is because it's real life. Love biographies, and so we do that. But yeah, I really do enjoy more nonfiction than fiction. And in terms of movies, ditto.
Do you have, you mentioned you have 2 kids?
I do.
And are they here local, or?
We are so fortunate, yes. Our daughter is an attorney, and she works for Siemens, and our son is a chiropractor in Winter Park. So I have a doctor and a lawyer.
So that's the perfect layout and,
Yes.
and a perfect sample of high achievers, that, like your parent, like the parents.
Yeah, and I think that's really true. It was never a question of whether I was going to go to school, it was where was I going to go to school. And it was kind of the same thing with the kids.
Well, thank you for updating us on your personal background, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the advice you might have for people who are watching today on or even considering starting their own business. So we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll see what advice Dr. Mimi might offer to our viewers today. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Main Street Profiles, where we connect with entrepreneurs and community leaders to learn from their experience and share ideas that can turn a good idea into a successful business. I'm Jerry Ross, and today we're talking with Dr. Mimi Hall, president of Hall & Associates. So we're going to change gears now. We've talked a little bit about the business and a little bit about you and your background, but I'd like to talk about some of those experiences and lessons that you've learned along the way that you might share with our viewers today. So let's start off. What was the most important skill that you've relied on to start a successful business?
Building relationships. And I realized that was easy for me, Jerry. I love people, and so building relationships is fun for me, and I think it's done more for me than anything else. And I think that's an important part that you really want to remember, is that people are not just customers or clients, they're people, and you have to really care about them.
Well, and it sounds like you did that pretty naturally in school and had experience in building relationships. Did you know that would apply to the business?
You know, again, you asked me earlier about the mentor. My dad was wonderful at that, and he was very strong about the fact that, you know, you care about people because of who they are, not because of what they do for you. And he said, if you do that, the business will come.
So, is there anything that you would do differently?
Yes, there's one thing I probably could have done earlier, and that was to hire an office manager. And the reason being is that's the part of the business that I don't do well. and the billing and the handling of those kinds of things. And so I have somebody wonderful who's doing that now and realizing the fact that those were my blind spots and I needed someone to fill in those spots, and I probably should have done that earlier.
I have to agree with you. When I was an entrepreneur, I was counseled to do that, and it was that juggle between, I know I need this, but can I afford this? Until someone said, you can't afford not to.
Exactly, exactly.
Were there other areas that you found as you began to grow that you needed help in?
You know, I did. I think it was looking at what else was happening out there. Technology. We love having interns because a lot of times they will tell us what's the latest and greatest and newest things that we should, bring into our repertoire in terms of technology. So I think that's another piece.
Do you have an advisory board or mentors that you go to when you just don't know?
Yeah, I do. It's not a formal one, but I have a group of people that I tend to seek counsel from that are honest with me and care about me and will also say, yeah, no, that's not a good idea.
And is that usually because it's not in your skill set, or is that usually because of the time? The
time, and that's trying to keep focused, and I think that's really an important piece. Like, I love doing the speaking at conferences, and that's something that I want to build, and so if I start to twirl another plate over here, that may go down. So again, I think it's really keeping me focused on there's a lot I can do, there's even more that I want to do, and then choosing what I will do.
Well, and I think sometimes when someone has that kind of education and background and experience, you can do a lot of things. And so it's how do you focus in on what it is that you will do? How do you do that?
How I do it is I look at really what does bring me the most pleasure, and again, trying to think about what do I really enjoy doing and what's going to bring in the most for the organization as well. And I think that's an important piece. It's not just all about me, but what can we do for the organization and also for the community. And I think that's the other piece. So I have to make those hard decisions.
What was the biggest challenge?
The first time I had to turn down work. I remember that was so hard. And it was turning down work, knowing that I could do it, but if I did it, it would take me off focus. And so that's probably the hardest piece. And when I have to say, let me refer you to somebody else, and people will say, no, but I want you, and I have to really transfer that trust to someone else, it's hard.
It is, and that again is all about relationships. But also having relationships that you can hand off to and trust that the work is going to get done correctly.
Exactly, and that's the other piece. You mentioned mentors. I also have a cadre of people that I trust enough to share and say, hey, you need to go there, or you need to do that. We've sent people to the National Entrepreneur Center before saying, hey, I don't do this, go there.
And that way they can get coaching and training and direction. You mentioned time. How do you manage your time? Work, home, business, relationships?
I am very scheduled. I admit that freely. If it's not on the calendar, I don't do it. And so I think that's part of what I do. And I schedule in fun, and that goes on the calendar as well. And I am blessed. I have a low maintenance husband, which is nice. And we've been married for 100 years, so that's good.
That's what I aspire to be, is a low maintenance husband. What do you think about the business climate here in Central Florida?
I think it's wonderful. I think we're growing. I think people are caring. We're getting more high-tech jobs. I love being in Central Florida and seeing where we are. I think it's a phenomenal opportunity for us.
So what do you see for the future of Hall & Associates? What's in the pipeline?
Oh, gosh. Again, I'm doing more convention speaking, and again, being in a perfect place, being here in Orlando. So I can reach more people with the message, doing work that really makes a difference, and I think that's important to me. And just growing and continuing to do what we do while staying focused, which is the hard part.
That is the hard part.
It is.
What kind of advice would you have for someone who's watching today that is thinking about starting a business?
We started, Jerry, on a shoestring, and you probably haven't heard me mention money very much. And the reason being is that I didn't go for fancy. I didn't go for expensive. I went for quality, and I went for caring. And if I was going to encourage someone, You know, you don't need the fancy office, and especially now when it's, you know, fashionable to work from home. You don't need expensive stuff around you. So you don't have to worry then about the money. And there's a great quote, and you know, my dad used to repeat it often, was, if you love what you do, the money will come. So do that part of it, and where you're not constantly have to worrying about debt, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. And having been an entrepreneur, debt can kill.
Yeah.
It can shut you down in a hurry. Yeah. What about someone that's doing business today and is thinking about how do I grow? What would you recommend for someone that's looking to grow their business?
Yeah, I think one of the things is go back to people who know and love you, and ask them what they see as your strengths. What are, you know, kind of do what I call a personal SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you see as the opportunities out there, really? Okay, and what do you see as the threats? What's going to keep me from growing? And be open to it. And what I mean by being open to it is truly just listen. You may want to rebut, and I always say, fold your hands tight, you know, keep them closed, and so therefore your mouth will be closed at the same time. Really listen to what people are saying to you and seek out that information.
Well, and at the same time, it has to be people that aren't just your inner circle, who love you and want you to be successful. Usually I'll say to them, so you think I should do this and you think this is a good idea, I would like to sell you one right now. And if they get out their wallet and do that, that says a lot about what they think, rather than saying, oh, you know, I think I'll wait on that. And so I think it's important too, who you're asking and who will give you honest results. And I've learned that from you, to say, how do you look around and find those people that can give you honest feedback?
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And also to realize that it takes time. There's a great quote from Johnny Carson, who said, it took me 15 years to be an overnight success. You know, if you're starting a business and you don't have any income coming in and you've got bills to pay, keep your day job. See if you can do it part-time. Can you do it on the weekend? Are you willing to put time in at night? Are you willing to put time in during your fun hours? It gives you a sense of how much you really enjoy it and whether it's worth it to do that.
Well, that's great advice, and time has flown. I see that we're coming up on the last break here, so thank you for your time here today, and thank you for sharing your advice and your experience.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us again today. If you would like to view previous episodes of Main Street Profiles, you can do so by visiting the Orange TV website at orangetvfl.net. And once again, I would like to thank Orange County Government and the National Entrepreneur Center for their ongoing support of our small business community, which includes this show. And finally, I would like to thank you for what you do each and every day to make our community a great place to live, work, and play. And so until next time, I'm Jerry Ross, and I will see you on Main Street.